Greetings and welcome to Trinity Radio. I'm Jonathan Pritchett, and along with me is
Braxton Hunter,
Yes.
and he didn't know that I was even going to start it out on him like that.
Doesn't-
But we are here.
Yeah.
This is the channel that loves atheists, and this is the channel that is catnip for your soul.
and we love everyone else too. We don't just love atheists.
Because chicken soup for your soul is
I
2000.
Yeah, I didn't expect that because I was distracted. So for all of you musicians out there, this is an important tip. Some of you may not know, but I used to be a producer. I used to produce music and stuff. So I just noticed, because Braxton had the levels of our intro music, which is fantastic intro music, but he had the levels so loud that I noticed something I hadn't noticed before, and that is whoever produced the track. What's the producer's name?
Joachim Karud.
Yeah, this is just a teaching moment, but he did the same thing. I noticed that, and I've never noticed this before, but he did what I did when I first started producing tracks and stuff. So when you're using drum samples, whether it's or you're using an electronic drum machine that you're using to synthesize your drums.
Pause. I am putting your questions in the favorite comments section as you ask them, so don't worry that we'll forget and miss your question. Go ahead, Pritchett.
Or if you're in a live band and you're using an acoustic drum set, tune your drums, because I noticed that the kick drum is not in the same key as the rest of the music, and now I can't unhear it. So if you're an acoustic drummer, tune your drum set. It's not just to keep it from going flat or sharp, but you can also get it in, like, so when I was in a band, it was in the 90s, so drop D tuning. You're a guitar player, you know what drop D tuning is,
it's like
right? It's so that you could just do
guitar.
one finger chords the whole, just whatever.
Yes, Marilyn, you started a thing. I'm keeping it.
Yeah, so tune your drum sets if you're an acoustic player, or go into the editing feature of your sampler or your drum synth or whatever you're using, and get your kits in the same key.
All right, music lessons with Dr. Pritchett. That's great. Just while we're waiting for some more questions to percolate, we thought one fun thing to do today would be to go over someone in our Facebook group.
Give them the
Trinity. Okay,
who was it?
It was
Jose. Okay,
Jose Rivera.
Yeah,
Melanie Rivera.
Melanie.
Melania. Jose Rivera and Melania Rivera.
First Lady.
Donald Rivera and Melania Rivera.
Right.
They asked in our Trinity Radio primetime discussion group, where we'd love to have you, on Facebook to tell me you watch Trinity Radio by not telling me you watch Trinity Radio. Now, this is a bit self-aggrandizing that we're talking about this, but it's fun. We have a little community here.
It's Friday.
So
we've been doing.
Why not?
We've been picking on atheists for the past several weeks. Let's.
So the first person says, and I don't think I should call names out every time,
right?
Because this is a private, a private group. But first one says prime time.
Yes, number one.
If you don't know why we refer to Jonathan Pritchett as Pritchett Prime on occasion, there is a video for that you can search and find on the YouTube channel that explains it with animations.
Right, and the reason why it has animations instead of us talking is because that goes back to the audio only version of this show.
How long have you been here? Like 8 years, something?
7.5.
Okay.
It'll be 8 years of March.
Okay, I won't say the last name, but Daniel says, that was a Daniel too, by the way. Daniel says, here's the thing. Because that is something that I do. Did you ever notice this about me before? Like, yeah, but here's the thing. Or here's the thing with that.
Yeah. Oh, I
or just as filler.
I know all your little things are in.
You know all my little things.
Then they're all. Everyone knows your things.
Okay. I don't watch Trinity Radio.
Yeah, that was me.
Make sure that I'm not missing.
I don't watch Trinity Radio.
So here's a question.
I live through it. I don't need to go back and watch. Now you will sometimes, not always,
Justin.
but you sometimes watch the shows after we've done the shows.
Yeah, I do. Part of that is I want to hear what we sounded like because either I have maybe a small issue of pride in enjoying hearing us talk about the stuff that we hopefully know something about.
Or did we say something exceedingly
But then
stupid?
That's it too. It's like, what damage control do I need to do after this? Okay.
Yeah.
So what am I doing now? Okay, back to the things.
Yes.
So you said you don't watch it. Trevin says, let's keep trucking.
That's another one of your things.
That one just emerged naturally. Like I would never plan for that. Aesthetically, I don't like it, but I say it. Like I'll respond to some atheist about a point and then be like, all right, let's keep trucking, and then play more of their video.
That's one of those things that's common in your response videos. Or if I veered us so far off the topic of what we're talking about, it's one of your bring it back on track kind of things. So, yeah.
Derek says he has something like this where he says, it's one of those things where...
It's one of those things. Yeah, I like that.
We do that too. It's like, I don't know if it's just like a Southern thing, like with us, but like you wouldn't probably find it surprising at all if I said, hey, I want to pour a Coke. And what I'm going to communicate to you is, give me, maybe I have a 2 liter of Coke, and I say, give me that thing of Coke. That thing of Coke? What? Yeah. But you wouldn't. That would go right in, wouldn't it? That wouldn't be a problem. Wouldn't even be questioned.
Well, his reminds me of something that I have found myself doing that the Apostle Paul does in the book of Romans. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'll go off on a tangent. You'll ask me about something, and I know that I have multiple things that I want to say, and I'll say, okay, so one. Yeah. I think that blah, 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 blah. And I never get around to two. But Paul does the same thing in Romans chapter 3. He's like, first, they were entrusted with the very words of God. And then you don't get to the rest of his list until chapter 9.
He's very parenthetical.
Yeah.
And he goes off. Now, people think it's impious. People think it's impious to say this about a biblical author, and especially none less than Paul. But yet, I'm sorry, Paul in his early days was a bit hot-headed. Not that that was the wrong thing to be. But he did strike someone blind. He did say, I hope the knife slips if you try to circumcise yourself. He said all these things. And also, he goes off on tangents.
Yeah, a 5-chapter parenthetical before he gets back to that list of things that the Jew, in Romans 9, verse 3. So it's like, and I noticed that I've noticed that I do that too. I'll say 1 without ever saying 2 when I get to my next point, or 3, so.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss these questions that people are asking. Good, we're getting on. Okay. Chris State says that he knows he's watching. Here's how you can know he watches Trinity Radio. Shut up, Jonathan.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. I can't tell you I haven't said shut up, Jonathan.
Yes, you have said it.
Have I?
We are in a very abusive, toxic relationship. No, I mean, you do say, shut up, Jonathan. But it's for comedic effect. It's not like after the show I'm about to
be upset.
Be upset.
Now, you see what I've highlighted here on the screen for you, Jonathan.
Yes.
Why don't you illustrate for us that song by singing it?
Honey. I love, this is, Rodney Tucker and me are the only ones, and maybe perhaps Taylor here, are the only ones still carrying the torch for the old Honey.
I don't even have it in here anymore. I can't even.
I know.
I can't even play it.
It's so fantastic.
Okay.
That is class. I mean, I do love our intro you've always done good with our intro. I even like the old audio podcast where your friend's band made that thing, and then you have all the voiceover stuff in there. And
is anyone watching this? Maybe a few.
Probably not.
Okay.
Who cares?
Look, I like blank and feel like he's a really nice guy. I have nothing against him. And I bet we'd get along great if we were to sit down and have lunch together.
Yes, the endless disclaimers from Braxton Hunter.
Punch bowl haircut. Someone just put punch bowl haircut because he is a regular here.
Yeah.
Why don't you say this next one?
Evolution is stupid.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is also you, I think.
Yeah, free will is not a superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Pritchett primed the Sith Lord of the dividing line in a highly entertaining episode that did not require an apology, but Prime is sensitive as well and did apologize.
Yes, I'm a sensitive. I generally felt like I went too far, and that's saying something because I normally know where the line is, but I feel like I went over the line.
I don't know what Zom here.
But a lot of people like that think that I didn't. But
I know.
I don't want to be that big of a.
You know where the line is, and you felt like maybe you towed over
right.
the line.
I mean, that was a little harsh.
But now look,
that was a lot of harsh.
I don't know if Zamo is just saying something that he thinks sounds like a Trinity Radio thing, or if this is an actual quote. But if it is, it's probably from you.
No, that's an actual quote.
That's when compatibilists become Spice Girls and tell you what you really want.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, I get it.
I said that. Yeah, I said that when we were talking about compatibilism and the whole of the Edwardian strongest desire thing, and yeah, that's where that came from.
Okay. Well, hold up just a minute. Let's say this. Thank you so much,
wow.
Angel WVM. Thank you so much. Do you know any significance of the Flavian dynasty to Christianity? No, but thanks for $5. Yeah. I really appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, we don't answer questions or try to pretend we know things we don't.
We're unconvinced about that connection, and we're waiting for it to be demonstrated. Until then, I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Han Solo flying around with Chewbacca is more likely than that.
Yes.
Now, I asked somebody, does anybody remember what that's from? And somebody found it. It was from
the Romans.
You were talking about Romans 9. Somebody else
Romans
actually
8,
made a video out of it, the provisionists.
Yeah,
perspective.
Yeah, Romans 8.
And
interpretations of Romans 8, 28 through 30.
Here's the options.
Yeah.
Number one, it means he foreknew who would do that and he predestined that. Yeah. Number two, it means those he knew before, like in the Old Testament, he predestined what they would become in the future. The third option is he predestined things a long time ago in a galaxy, or he foreknew things from a long time ago in a galaxy far far away. He's talking about Han Solo and Chewbacca. Yeah. And then way after that, you've got the Calvinist interpretation. That's what you said. That's not what I said. That's what he said.
The first option was, I think, was most likely was the Leighton Flowers reading, which is not original to Leighton Flowers, even though people think it's original to Leighton Flowers. So I'll give him credit, even though it goes beyond way before him. He didn't invent that out of thin air. But that would be the first. The second one is the Bible Bro-Down option, which they get from Ben Witherington. It's the forwards looking back from the end.
Yeah,
that's and the Bro-Down guys, which I don't. Are they even still doing anything?
I just looked. It's been 5 months since they. Yeah. All right, let's get back and look at the trees. Look at the trees.
Yeah,
I want everyone to think of us every time they hear a skeptic say, "Look at the trees," because as we've said many times, the point of "look at the trees" is to try and caricature every design approach, every teleological argument type thing.
And I want everyone to go to the Trinity Radio merch store and buy a T-shirt.
We have a T-shirt. Look at the trees.
Someone. Because this, unlike other things that you probably won't be able to get anyone for Christmas because of shipping problems, you can still get a Trinity Radio T-shirt and get the one with Braxton, because I know it doesn't sell near as many as the one with me.
No, that's true. That's true. I think for good reason. All right, we're almost to the questions and answer period now.
My profile picture is you close to my heart.
I know.
Because, I mean, that's an awesome T-shirt. Your face is right here.
That's enough pseudo-intellectual blather, or that's enough pseudo-pious blather. Yeah. Now, Pritchett.
Right.
3 radios at once. 3 radios at once. I'm not sure what that. You're a deeper fan.
That's
than
a
I
deep
am.
cut.
No, it's Harris son. No, it's Harris. That's heresy. No, it's Harris son.
Yeah.
And I had a Han Solo action figure.
Intro, yeah.
God's favorite Radiohead album is OK Computer. Okay. Either one of us could have said that.
No, you said that.
Okay. And then John Dunphy says, "Who are they?" All right. Yeah. So let's get into the Q&A now, and that was fun. A fun way to start it. Let's go to the top of the list, and let's see. It says, "Hey, Trinity Radio, recently found this channel and loving it, especially the Genesis series. What
Bible-y stuff by Braxton Hunter.
What resources would you suggest to study John?" Okay. Well, it's good that we're both here to answer this question.
Yes.
Why don't you give? So obviously, both of us would recommend that you have at your disposal. You'll recall in the Genesis series on multiple episodes, I said that I thought everyone should have the Old Testament Bible backgrounds commentary from IVP. Well, and I know about that primarily because of Jonathan. He's the first one that ever told me about it. But the New Testament has one of those too. The New Testament Keener. Bible background, and the whole thing's written by Keener, right?
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. So you want to have that.
That's the first place I look. But I want to recommend Keener's commentary. Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to recommend. That's number one. You want to have not just the IVP, but his. It used to be 2-volume. I don't know if it's still 2-volume or if they condensed it to 1 volume, but that's a must-have. It needs to go on your list. A lot of people are going to recommend D.A. Carson's. I don't. It's not worth your read. I think that Witherington's is good. I think.
We don't have to go on a tangent here, but
I think for a it's not necessarily like a commentary on John, but if you want to get like a theology of John, I think Kostenberger, and it's from a Reformed perspective, but I still think that he does a really good job. He's got a really big book on Johannine theology, and I think that that's probably a good thing to have handy.
Well, my favorite, I've often said, and this is a classic commentary, but I think F.F. Bruce's Gospel of John commentary is fantastic. I also like N.T. Wright's John.
Yeah, I was going to recommend that. N.T. John for Everyone, because it's good to have just a layman commentary on him.
And it really it reads very enjoyably. Yeah. And then the only other things I would say is, in terms of audio or internet-based resources, if Mike Winger has a series on John, I don't know if he does or not, but I recommend we'd be on the same page on a lot of things, but for sure, I have listened through Steve Gregg's, and Steve Gregg at thenarrowpath.com. If you go to his verse by verse and go to the John, his audio commentary on John, you won't be disappointed. So there you go. Hopefully those things will help out. And let's see. Next, we've got up A.D. Whitman, who's been really helpful in supporting this channel, like promoting it and things. Which end time view do you believe is the most accurate?
We were just talking about this before the thing.
I'm happy to answer.
Yeah,
I'll answer.
I asked Braxton this very question, not which do you believe is most accurate, but I asked him, where are you at as far as have you come?
Well, hopefully where I'm at would indicate what I think is most likely to be the case.
Well, I was just curious if you'd actually moved from your.
Not really, but kind of. So I was always raised with a futurist view of end times related things and pre-trib, pre-millennial, all that sort of thing. But I became convinced by the partial preterist view, not the full preterist heretical view, but the partial preterist view, that it seems clear to me that when you look at what Josephus describes about the siege of Jerusalem, and then you look at what it says in Revelation, that there's so much there, and then there are other. I mean, that would take a whole. We have 2 whole courses on that at Trinity, but the fact is, I think that is saying something true. I think that's the true position. The thing is, there are some things there that still make me lean toward the futurist view, and obviously this is what makes it complicated. Unless you're a full preterist, you believe that there are future related elements in Revelation anyway to be fulfilled. So because of all of that, right now where I sit is partial preterism, but it could be that this is basically like a prophecy of double reference that also points to things in the future. So that may not satisfy too many people, but I think it works. Go ahead.
Definitely in the partial preterist camp. As far as eschatology, I mean, probably Amill. Just kind of fall into that camp. I generally default there. I think that's probably right. But I'm not married to it. I'm not married to it.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. What is your favorite movie of all time? This is a different question from what is the most perfect movie of all time, which is probably Moonrise Kingdom. It's not that it's that enjoyable or anything. It's just I think every scene in that film was executed with perfection, as close to it. It's like almost a platonic form of what a good movie should be. But my favorite movie of all time would be the Indiana Jones movies. And if you make me pick among
it's like
the
picking your
4
favorite
new
child.
5, it's very difficult, but I would probably go Last Crusade.
Crystal Skull doesn't rank anywhere in there. Well, I don't
You better
know.
hold your tongue, son.
Are you?
I'm an apologist
you're
of
apologist.
I'm a Crystal Skull
Just like
apologist.
you were an apologist
Yeah.
to the prequels.
You know what the other way of saying you're a true Crystal Skull apologist is to say you're thoroughgoingly a fan. You're a real fan, not a fake fan like you are. All right, HWD
Like me?
71.
Oh, come on. I don't
Do you defend the Crystal Skull?
It's to me it's not. It was disappointing for an Indiana Jones film, but it's still a decent film. I mean, I can watch it. No, I would never do a rewatch and then just skip it like a lot of people would. So,
All right. Well, my wife doesn't recognize it as a part of the Indiana Jones canon.
that's too far.
Right? Yeah. Who gets to make those decisions? By what authority?
By what stance?
Yeah. Okay. Jonathan, what's your favorite movie of all time?
See, that's I don't know.
That's you're just gonna leave it.
It's like, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite
TV
book?
series?
What's your
then?
favorite anything? I can't pick a favorite. I don't. It's like, what's your favorite food? I don't do that. There's I either really enjoy something, kind of enjoy something, or don't enjoy something.
Can you ever just answer a question?
I don't know what I would say is my favorite.
What's your favorite movie?
I don't know.
What's your favorite movie?
I don't know.
So
I would have okay. Here,
So what
I'll
would be
do
your
I'll
favorite
do
movie
this.
then?
I'll do this. I have probably seen Empire Strikes Back more than any
Okay,
other,
that's your favorite movie
Any
then.
other movie.
not a Star Trek film, but Empire.
I've probably watched that movie more than any other movie because you have to realize in the VHS years, right? You had to wait for some things. You'd have to wait for them to come out on video.
Yeah, they had to go produce that stuff on video.
Yeah, but by the time my family finally acquired Return of the Jedi, I was starting to just get burnt out of watching them all the time. And so I probably watched Return of the Jedi less than I did the other two. But I know that I watched Empire Strikes Back more. And there's a reason for that.
It's better.
But you got to see...
Let's make it brief because we got a lot of
You got to see different aspects of the Millennium Falcon that you didn't see in the other two films.
That's what edges it out?
Yeah.
Not
that
Han
it's
gets
such a
frozen in
great
carbonite,
dark
taken away by Boba Fett.
Second
Luke gets his hand cuts off, find out
second
Vader's his
act.
father. Does
Yeah,
anybody know what
I
movie
wanted
I'm
to
quoting
check
from?
out the ship.
Do you know what movie I was just quoting from?
No.
Okay, good. I don't want to say it. All right. Hi, Doctors Braxton and Jonathan. How come Jesus didn't know the day or hour of his return? Since he was God, how come he didn't know? Thank you. Jonathan, do you want to handle this or me? I don't mind either way.
Well, there's several different ways that people handle it.
Okay. Well, okay. People are not comfortable with Jesus not knowing something when he's supposed to be God. Yet, if you go to Luke chapter 2, toward the end of it, not the Christmas story, but toward the end of it, I think it's after the story where he goes missing and ends up at the temple, and they come, they find him, and that whole thing, and about I got to be about my Father's business and all of that. But then it says something like that he grew in stature and wisdom.
Yeah.
So if he grew in stature or knowledge or something like that, I'm not sure what the actual word is.
Stature, yeah.
But it's like he's acquiring knowledge or acquiring wisdom. Yeah. And so while it is a part of Christian theology that God the Father, unless you're open to theist, God the Father doesn't learn. He doesn't acquire knowledge. At the same time, Jesus in his incarnation did learn things, did grow in stature and
I mean, in his humanity, he did not necessarily have constant access to all knowledge of his divine
Now,
nature.
whether he could have by choice is a different question.
That is a different matter. But I tend to think, given Luke's gospel and the emphasis on, and the Holy Spirit was driving Jesus' ministry or whatever, I think that there was some sort of self-limiting factors there,
which may well be part of what
voluntary,
may have been necessary in order for him to be tempted in all the ways of man.
Right.
So there's some issues.
Right, because I'm not an impeccability person. That that it would have been impossible for Jesus to have sinned.
Right, I'm not either. But even if that is the case,
humanity.
But even if that is the case, they still have to affirm that he was tempted.
Yeah.
And I think that may well be that a certain limiting the access of knowledge that way may have been necessary for certain temptations.
And I've read Nash and Walvoord and all the guys who were pushing the, at the time when I was studying these issues, I've read their arguments. I used to be kind of on the fence about that, and I understand the theological reasonings behind the impeccability thing, But again, it's like it's the same thing with that as you would with any divine attribute of like knowledge. Is Jesus lying when he said he didn't know, or is there a way that you can explain that through his humanity and that can not compromise his divinity, but rather it just be not accessible at any given time? Now, certainly Jesus probably could have accessed it at any given time, but there's kind of that emptying of himself, and so I think that there was a reliance there. So I don't like the idea that some people, well, he's just being rhetorical or something. No, because he said no one.
So the whole point, if it was being rhetorical, it's to make the point that he made. Right?
Yeah, that he doesn't know. And so in his humanity, he didn't know, and that's fine. But if you're going to take that route for an explanation, what other things can you go that route? And that's where I think, similarly, I don't find impeccability to be compelling.
Now, I've thrown Danny up here just because I saw that he was here. Good to see you, Danny. Compatibilism is the one true view. Ha, ha, ha. Well, you're only determined to think so. Yeah. All right. Honestly, Atheist says, Trinity Radio, do you believe that reasonable, non-resistant non-believers exist, or must all non-belief stem from some kind of unreasonableness or resistance of the heart? Well, I think Jonathan and I might have some nuanced answers. The reason this question comes up for anyone that might wonder is because there's an argument, an atheist argument from divine hiddenness. The idea that why is God not more apparent? If he wants people to believe in him, why doesn't he just like show up in every country once or twice a year, make a speech, or I'm overblowing it, but to make the point, right? It should be more obvious than it is. And so the idea of that from Schellenberg and others is that, look, I'm not, if I'm a particular atheist, I might genuinely mean to say, I'm not resistant to the idea of God's existence. Honestly, atheists may feel this, maybe that's the reason for his name, is because I'm really not resistant. I just honestly don't see enough evidence to believe. And so this question comes up that one way that theists attack the argument is to say, well, there are no non-resistant atheists. And non-resistant would be someone who does have a motive or a bias not to believe or something like that. And so here's the thing. I think that there's enough evidence in the world that if someone wishes to believe, then they can believe and be reasonable in doing so. If you follow that evidence, I think you find stronger and stronger reasons to believe. And I know that people like Honestly Atheist are listening to things like the sorts of things we talk about and other apologetics channels talk about. The other side of that is there seems to be biblical evidence in Romans chapter 1 that it's obvious to everyone so that nobody has any excuse if there's a God, if that applies not just to idolaters, but to atheists as well. And in a situation like that, putting all that together, here's what I think. I think there are people who at this moment genuinely don't believe. I don't think they're lying. I think they aren't being disingenuous. I think they really don't believe. What we're really talking about is not whether what they believe at any particular time, but what drove you to that point. And are you at this point genuinely not resistant? Another feature of this is you may be resistant and not even be aware of it. Now that obviously sounds like theist gaslighting or something to some people. But the whole psychology and psychologists exist partly because it's not clear to us all the time why we believe exactly what we believe. So there's a lot there. I don't know that there are any completely non-resistant unbelievers, but I do believe there are genuine unbelievers, and that's the distinction I would make. Jonathan, you have anything to say?
No, I mean, do I think that it's? I think that in all cases there is now this may just be a theological answer, but I do believe that in all cases of unbelief there is a resistant heart. In all cases. If you are not a Christian, it is because you are resisting the truth and suppressing the truth and unrighteousness even.
If Christianity is true.
If Christianity is true, which I believe. So not to get all precept on everybody, but I don't have a problem with precept for the most part. It's presuppositional list, not ism, that I have a problem with. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, those are kind of two different questions. Can a person be reasonable and a non-believer? Yes, until they are just unreasonably objecting to the Christian arguments based on that resistant heart. But in general, they can be reasonable people, and they can have reasonable reasons, I think, but they're not unassailable reasons for disbelief. Mm-hmm. I don't think they have any arguments that Christianity cannot overcome. Mm-hmm. No, I don't think that those kinds of people exist.
All right, thank you. And Computer Theist says, are you aware of a Calvinist blog called TrinitySem.edu? It was run by the late Steve Hayes. Did you know him? Him and Chris Tate didn't get along despite both being Calvinists. I've heard of TrinitySem.edu. I didn't know anything. I don't recognize the name Steve Hayes. Don't know the story about him and Chris. Don't know anything about that.
I think you have to hate Jesus and Santa Claus to not get along with Chris Tate. If not Jesus, at least Santa Claus. Like, you would sit there and you would be a jerk to Santa.
Are you the kind of person that punches puppies?
Right. Do you put cats in your microwave? I mean, and then I don't know this Steve guy.
Well, there goes the monetization on this video.
Right. I don't know this Steve guy, so I don't know if he's an awful person, and I'm not claiming he's an awful person. All I'm saying is that in my mind, to not get along with Chris Tate, who
is revealing about your character.
Yes, because he is.
Well, I don't even know this guy. You don't know this guy, and he's dead. He can't even take up for himself.
I know, and I don't. Okay. That's what I said. I don't know anything about it. But in my mind, if you can't get along with Chris Tate, you microwave cats, because it's just like, how in the world could you not get like? Okay, so take Chris Tate and myself for example, right? I mean, we probably.
Are you saying if Chris Tate can get along with me, he can get along with
right?
anyone?
I mean, he's like a dear friend, and if he can, I mean, we don't agree on stuff, but I don't know how you would get into a literal dislike.
Yeah, I don't. I privately argue with Chris about stuff at least once a week.
Right, but it's for fun. Yeah,
right, let's move on here. Mr. Green says, "Have you seen Halloween Kills yet? And if so, would you like to go to halfsies on therapy?" Gosh, Braxton, I haven't seen it. I'm not 100% sure. What is that new Halloween movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when I was a kid, I saw the original Halloween, and then
I wasn't allowed to. It's R-rated.
Yeah,
right?
I think
it's against the rules.
Well, I don't remember. I think I saw it with some friends or whatever, like on a VHS
His parents don't
tape
love
or whatever.
them and let them do things like that.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. And then
that's what your mom said.
Right. And then I remember seeing the H2O one because I used to go to movies a lot, and so I would just sit in. I'd buy one ticket and then just go from theater to theater in my misspent youth. And so I think
How interesting do you think it is to our audience to hear the stories behind you going to each Halloween film?
I didn't go. I just went to two. So I don't. But all that's to say, I'm not a huge fan of the franchise. I've just seen two of the movies, and I haven't watched this. And it's likely at this point in my life, I'm never going to watch Halloween Kills.
There you go. And it sounds like that's a good choice because it would send you to therapy.
Yeah.
Unashamed of Jesus, who's always promoted our stuff, and we appreciate it so much, says, question, are vaccines moral since all are derived from aborted fetuses? Let me say first, we had a debate moderated by you, wasn't it? No, you moderated the one on is annihilationism heresy.
Right.
I moderated this one. No, Chris Date moderated this one. And it was, and he's like the unofficial third member of Trinity Radio.
He is.
But we have that whole debate there. Pritchett and I both got vaccinated, and we're soon to be double vaccinated. You didn't want me to tell that, did you?
I don't care. We go Monday, I think, for our second.
Look,
I've told this is what I told people. Why they asked me if I was vaxxed before I was vaxxed? No, I'm not vaxxed. Are you against vax? No, I'm lazy. I haven't bothered to go down. You know, the only reason why but I don't. Since we're going to go into this, I just, if you don't want to get it, don't get it. If you do want to get it, get it. I don't care. I literally don't care, and I do hate the idea of these mandates. It's just insane. But that's my.
Well, he's specifically asking about the aborted fetus.
I didn't have enough of any sort of like moral objection on those grounds to not go get vaxxed, because I think
if it was going to require a single abortion to do it, and it did like decades ago, right? But if it was going to require a single abortion for this to be possible, I would say it's immoral for anyone to get
right. But they already had the lines from that.
They had that, and perhaps and us getting it isn't causing more.
But there's like a lot of discussion on whether this vaccine.
You probably already had other stuff that had those lines in
right.
it,
But there's also a discussion of does the vaccine, or was that just in the clinical trials something about? I don't know how that works.
But it could be one of those, you meant it for evil, but God turned it, meant it for good. We would say, brought something great out of that child's life. Yeah. In spite of the evil that was done to it.
But I don't care if you don't get a vaccine. I don't know why I got it, other than I just got around to getting it. But I don't care one way or the other if people.
Okay. Thank you for that.
I think it's ridiculous to care about that.
Let's go on to the next thing. I've been watching y'all since Braxton's video with Mike Winger on the Kalam. Thank you guys so much for helping me develop a reasonable faith.
Sweet. JD Gangster.
Thanks, JD Gangster.
What a handle.
I appreciate that.
What a handle.
That's awesome. That really makes my day. It really, really does. Thank you. Computer Theist is back and says the same thing you said before, so I must have just thrown it in there wrong. So, okay. Derek Beeler says, would you be insulted or honored if I called you Bible Answerman for today?
Honored.
Honored? I know because he's talking about Hank Hanegraaff is the Bible Answerman.
Right, and he went to the
Eastern Orthodox.
And you know how much I care about that?
Well, the real question is, how much does he know of the Bible? A heck of a lot.
Yeah, he went from one Christian tradition to another Christian tradition, and y'all know me, Paleo-Orthodoxy, probably more ecumenical than a lot of people, and I don't care.
Good question.
Hank Hanegraaff is going to be in heaven with all the people who hate his guts now.
Good question from Kevin. What do you make of the ending of the Gospel of Mark? Most scholars believe that the end was a later addition. First of all, I want to say I happen to know that Winger just did a couple of videos on this. In one case where he assumes it is original. And for those that don't know, after Mark 16, verse 8, and after verse 8, to the end of the chapter, is contested and doesn't seem to be in some of our oldest manuscripts that we have. And so the consensus seems to be that it's probably not original. And one of the responses that you'll get from, because I've used to give these responses, one of the responses you'll get from people is, well, like, look, certain things like the ending to Mark, that contested part of the ending, or Acts, what is it, 7:37? I forget. It's like the Ethiopian eunuch, is that 7 or 8? I don't know. Where he's like, what hinders me to be baptized?
Yeah.
And he says, well, it says something like, if you confess the name of the Lord Jesus, you shall. And then he baptizes him. Mm-hmm. And that verse is missing in some of the newer translations because, well, there's a lot of reasons. One reason for that sort of thing is we had these three, I think this was how Westcott and Hort did it. You had three, you had the Codex Vaticanus, Sinaiticus, and Alexandrius. And if a verse wasn't in two of the three or something like that, it didn't get included in that particular line. I'm not as knowledgeable about this as it's been a while since I've studied it, but as you can tell, there's some stuff clanking around in the old brain here about this. But anyway, that's the way some people will respond is to say, well, look, here's this church father, for example, seemingly quoting, say, Acts 7 or Mark, something in Mark into the ending, and they'll say, look, this seems to indicate that it was authentic. Well, it may very well be because it was included by that church father as some commentary that it got passed along and later included. So it's difficult. The great thing is we have so many manuscripts now. We are very confident about what should and should not be present, or what seems to have been in the original. And though I'm not 100% sure, I would say that Mark 16:9 and following is not original. If I find out I'm wrong, well then fantastic.
Right.
So
do I accept it as authentic at this point? No. But I agree with John Frame where he talks about there's nothing in there that is in conflict with anything that is, authentic biblical material in the New Testament, right? I mean, Paul himself got bit by a snake, nothing happened to him.
Right.
Yeah. Plus, I like it as evidence to my cessationist friends that even though it's not authentic, the fact that it's not authentic and it was a later writing tells us what early Christians believed they should expect from being Christians and as being disciples of Jesus. They expected these things to be normative. So I like that as evidence for continuationism post the first century.
Never even thought about that.
Yeah. So just because I don't accept it as authentic doesn't mean it's not good early attestation for a continuationist
Thank you, Jim Amberg, Channel Angel. Since you're already demonetized, vasectomies, sinful for married couples nearing the end of their 30s and done with diapers. What do you think now?
I think not.
What? It's not sinful?
No.
Yeah, I can't say that it's sinful, but those that have listened to Trinity Radio for a while know that that's a part of my story. And I have regretted that part of my story because I have two beautiful daughters that I love so much. But the Bible describes your children as arrows that you fire on the enemy. And why would one wish to limit the number of arrows that they could have? But you
because kids are wait till they're
Hey, I got a teenager in the house now.
Well, you wait till you're several years into that teenage years.
But here's but that doesn't really address the intellectual side of the problem here, right? You're saying, yeah, but it's hard. Well, okay, so buck up, Buttercup. But the thing is, why would you want to limit the number? Now, and then the people will tell you, like, every kid that you have costs you like $280,000 the time you get it to through high school and out of your house. Well, it's not like, even if that's true, and I highly doubt that that's exactly true that way, it's not like each kid is $280,000 because anyone who's had more than one kid, like whoever made that statement, doesn't have kids, because anyone who has kids knows the second kid, like it or not, is getting some hand-me-downs. We're not paying just as much. Plus, I don't have to pay for room and board twice in a row. I already have the house, for the kids with the first one. So, this is a lot of reasons people give that I don't think are necessarily good reasons. However, I can't say that it's sinful to do that, and especially where Jim raises someone in their late 30s, because we do know that there are possible health risks, and it's not to say that God can't use children born with medical problems and things like that. That's not what I'm saying, or mental disorders or anything like that. That's not. Those are wonderful humans, wonderful people, but when you're getting close to late your 30s, it could be dangerous for you. It could be dangerous for the baby. And so if one wishes to get vasectomy at that point, I get it because that's for different reasons than I think what I object to for myself. And
so I got accused by Jed of being long-winded. I said I think not, and then you gave 5-minute life lessons and life stories.
Well, it was a super chat, okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
And it's from Jim Amberg. I got to find back. Oh, here we go. Kenneth Soto, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Kenneth.
That is a substantial super chat. How can a Christian believe in Christianity and at the same time not believe in evolution? How can a Christian believe in Christianity and at the same time not believe in evolution? You can't simultaneously believe in something and then disbelieve in something else with more evidence. I really don't want to say this, Kenneth, because you were sweet to give us a super chat, but I'm not sure I understand your question. How can a Christian believe in Christianity and at the same time not believe in evolution? Well, that person would be a young earth creationist.
Yeah.
And they would interpret Genesis 1 and other related passages that way.
Now, if he's asking if he meant to ask how can they believe in Christianity and evolution. That makes a little
in that sense,
you can't simultaneously believe in something and then disbelieve in something else with more evidence.
I think what he means is there's it seems like it seems like you're like in some people's minds, maybe, oh yeah, I'm a Christian and I believe all the Christian stuff. But then at the same time, well, I believe in evolution, of course. And maybe they haven't considered that there could be a conflict between those two things. And there may be, but I don't think that there necessarily is a conflict. What it would mean is that one of the other readings other than what young earth creationists give for Genesis 1, at least Genesis 1, and maybe at the aspect of woman's creation in Genesis 2 or whatever. I guess man and woman is created again in Genesis 2, aren't they? I think that's how it goes. But anyway, that those would have to be maybe a different genre, but then, or maybe a different framework or understanding. But there are many people that are in that camp. In fact, William Lane Craig just released a book on the historical Adam that goes into all of that. If you want to read through from someone who is a powerful voice, and apparently from that perspective. All right, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Okay, now I found where I'm supposed to be with the questions now. So let's see.
There's a question about why didn't Philo write about Jesus? Same reason why Paul didn't write about Jesus's birth narratives. Wasn't part of his, wasn't on his radar to write about.
Yeah.
Yep. Similar. I mean,
if he did, it would be great, but it doesn't hurt the case that he didn't.
Right.
Will you get back for Blood on Xbox? I'm just going to lose some geek cred here, but I don't know what that is. I'm going to imagine.
You're not a real gamer.
I'm going to
No true gamer would.
I'm imagining it's a first-person shooter of some sort. Napoleon Dynamite. I just watched Napoleon Dynamite, Unashamed from Jesus. It's a Wonderful Life is fantastic. Jaws is great.
Yeah, the original Jaws is a great movie.
Who, in your opinion, is the best Christian apologist and Christian philosopher? Like two different guys?
Yeah. For him, it would be the same. William Lane Craig for him, who's both an apologist and a philosopher.
I'll be a fanboy. I don't care.
Yeah, that's your favorite.
It's not cool anymore. Like, it's cooler. Yeah. If you want to seem like a real philosophy of religion guy, you have to pick somebody else like Swinburne or somebody like that. Sorry, I'm still a Craig head.
Yeah.
Judge all you want.
I think Craig is still probably my favorite Christian philosopher, just because he's had such a distinguished and lengthy career that he has chimed in on a lot of, and I'm glad that his late career is getting back to his doctorate in theology, which he also has, by the way, just to remind people who think, he's just a philosopher. I'm glad he's getting back into theology, but he has a very distinguished career commenting on so many philosophical things. I mean, I can go back to I guess the 80s, or maybe even before then, when I was reading old journal articles where he was engaging with process theology and things like that, which is a lot of philosophical stuff with Whitehead and all that. But my favorite apologist is easy. It's Eric Hernandez. No doubt. Eric Hernandez is my favorite Christian apologist, and I hope he has many disciples after him that have that same swagger,
Amen.
That same humor, that same everything. He's so
video editing ability.
Yeah, video editing. He's so beyond the cookie cutter, be winsome biologetics stuff that's
what I am, right?
Right, you're straight out of that.
I'm winsome. You would expect me to have been a biology
that
student.
Apologetic. What do you call it? It's almost like a factory that just the assembly line produces
little boxes on the hill.
Just produces and spits out the winsome apologists, and it's just so. Ugh.
Lawrence of Arabia, Mariah says, hands down. Runners up are Blade Runner and Casablanca, but Indiana Jones is my childhood. Yeah. And you've kind of got a what era was that? 50s? Indiana Jones, 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. 30s and 40s, the originals.
The originals were
set in the, because remember,
30s.
Crystal Skull followed it along and picked up in the 50s with
50s,
the aliens.
Yeah.
I'm just saying she's got kind of an aesthetic here going that would fit with the Indiana Jones universe.
Yeah, the Temple or Last Crusade was in the 40s. Were they in the late 30s or early 40s? Were they all in the early? Because I know that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom happened before, was essentially a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark since the year was prior.
Oh, you're saying Raiders, Temple of Doom was a prequel to Raiders.
Right.
Yes, that's right. And he was obviously at his most fit and most Like the way he looked in that movie is how I look if he gets to heaven. If he goes to heaven, but I think he's Jewish, isn't he? I don't know. I'm not sure what this is. All right, let's see. Question: will you please compare? What? Oh, I'm gonna wait for you on this one, Jonathan, because this is a theology question or a New Testament. All right, so let's see what we have here. Okay, here's a good question. Trinity Radio, what is your opinion on hell houses, particularly even if Christianity is true, but eternal conscious torment view of hell is false? Would hell houses be an appropriate evangelical tool for children? Okay. Now, I'm sure there are people who listen to there. I know I got a lot of pastors and youth pastors who listen to the show. And so I want to handle this with care. I've been a member at churches that have done hell houses. I've never participated in a hell house. For those that don't know, it's basically like a haunted house, but that conveys Christian theology primarily down to an eternal conscious torment view of hell. That, so you'll walk through, you'll see something about, I'm just pulling something out of the air here, a young man's life, and he gets into drugs and he starts sleeping with his girlfriend, and then he gets in this car wreck one night, drunk driving or whatever, and then he stands before the judgment of God, and then the next scene will be he's in hell, and that scene is going to terrify you, and then the next thing after that is a room where some people are happy to talk to you if you'd like to become a Christian. I believe people have come to Christ in hell houses. There's nothing about a hell house that prevents people from coming to Christ in a hell house. The thing is, I have this opinion, and this kind of goes along for those of you that have read Letters from Ignorantia, kind of in the vein of some of the ideas there, is that if whatever it takes to get you to like join up, obviously I don't know whether a person is really saved or not, like really a Christian, but whatever it takes to get you into the church, it's going to take something just as dramatic, just as flamboyant, just as sensory or whatever it is to keep you in church. And it could well be that we need to think about that when we think about the design of our worship services and things like hell houses. So I would not do a hell house if I were pastoring today. Jonathan, would you do a hell house?
What is a hell house?
It's like I just explained. It's like a haunted house, but that conveys soteriology and ultimately a final judgment scene and then hell. And so like some kid starts shooting up and sleeping with his girlfriend, and he goes. So
sort of like the very end of the
Creationist Museum.
Creation Museum, where you start with old Earth creationism, and then your daughter ends up pregnant, and your son.
But I mean, it is true that people that die without Christ are condemned. But of course, it's an eternal conscious torment view for sure. And then right after you get done with the hell scene with people screaming and dying and their face melting off, you go into a room where you can sign a card and become a Christian.
Yeah, pass on that.
People are going to say I did a caricature. I'm not saying there's not a right way to do drama in the church.
Right.
And I'm not saying people haven't gotten saved in hell houses. I think they have, as I say. So.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a particularly interesting question there to cover. All right, Jonathan, you love to go on about this.
Okay.
Will you please compare and contrast ransom theory, Christus Victor, and penal substitution / atonement, and explain why you prefer one over the other?
Okay, well, I as far as the ransom theory, as far as like paying a ransom to Satan, I don't, that no merit to that whatsoever. But I do like telling people that whenever we hear the word ransom, we think the payment is made to someone, like pay, but Jesus paid a ransom for many. It's like, same thing with Philippians 2, like he emptied himself. People always want to ask, and Gordon Fee pointed it out in his commentary, emptied himself of what? And no, it's not, Jesus didn't empty himself of something. He emptied himself. So he just paid the ransom. So I don't want to make, well, he paid a ransom, not necessarily to Satan or anything. So I don't think that, but the idea of ransom doesn't necessarily mean making the ransom payment to someone. It's just paying a ransom. Don't overthink that. But the ransom theory,
don't push the analogy too far.
Right? Yeah, I don't.
Or you come up with Bill and Ted's theology of Satan is actually living in hell and perfectly happy there.
Yeah,
and he's waiting for God to pay him off or something.
Now, but as far as did Jesus pay a ransom for many? Yes, absolutely. So it's biblical. Put that in the biblical box. Christus Victor, that Jesus declared victory over his enemies. That's absolutely, and I think that that's the primary lens through which we're to view this: the powers and principalities, and Jesus bringing all of his enemies under his feet. You get this Colossians 2, Jesus, he disarmed, right, his enemy at the cross. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Jesus is victorious over the powers that oppose him, right?
Yeah.
And the powers of the cosmic sense, the apocalyptic sense of like the personified sin and death and all of that stuff. So, yeah. And then you have the powers of principality. Yeah, Christ is victor. It's a victorious thing. So, is that biblical? Yes, you check it. Okay, penal substitution. Did Jesus satisfy the wrath of God on behalf of, a sinner so that we didn't have to pay that wrath? Yes, and I know that a lot of people have a problem with penal substitution, and it's becoming trendy to reject it. But I affirm a positional penal substitutionary atonement. I don't affirm it in sort of like this idea, like in Pierce for Our Transgressions. Those authors, after doing a relatively decent defense of penal substitution, go off the rails in their horrible treatment of the early church fathers to try to bolster their case, and I think that they did not do it. Reformed people typically not very good at church history, and then they did but an okay job defending it. But then they tried to tie it to limited atonement. So you can't have penal substitution without, and that's absolutely bogus. No, it's Jesus. God condemns sin in the flesh of Jesus, and anyone who's in Jesus has that satisfaction too of God's wrath. So penal substitution,
call
yes,
this divergent atonement.
Right. Well,
it's all of them.
Yeah. So is that there? And a lot of people say, is it expiation or propitiation? In Romans 3, and they're like, well, that's just the God is angry and fitting on Jesus and all of that, and that's so Greek and pagan. Yeah, which is why he used that language to be familiar with a largely Greek audience in Rome. So yeah, it's precisely leaning into that. That not that it doesn't include expiation, that's part of it too. It's not one or the other, but just because you think, well, that sounds like those angry pagan gods. Well, yeah, but it's relatable because Paul just said the wrath of God and all that in chapter 1 verse 18. So of course wrath, we kind of wrath, that language is not necessarily like beside yourself in anger. That's if you go back to Aristotle, it's mainly the appropriate response to having been slighted by a lesser party. Like this, the Bible does have language for God being seriously furious, peed off, but he does get fly off the hand, in the Old Testament.
Is that anthropomorphism, or is that really what's happening?
Well, I'm not an impassibility.
I asked that because
I think God is in heaven and he gets pretty
okay, but
off.
I'm asking that because it's a segue into the next question from the same questioner.
But so for me, I think that Christus Victor, I put it up here as the main thing overarching all of these other things that are legitimately. I even will take the moral government theory and say, yeah, there's a little bit of that too. It's like a chandelier. Yeah.
And the anchor is for you, Christus Victor.
Right, yeah. But it's all of it. So I prefer an inclusive or incorporated idea of the atonement.
Okay, here we go. Will you please compare and contrast Molinism with dynamic omniscience and explain why you prefer one over the other? So we've explained Molinism a lot here, and isn't dynamic omniscience the technically open theist view?
That's the Drew. I think that's Drew McLeod, or McLeod, as you say.
But it's like the idea that he knows all possibilities, but he doesn't necessarily know which one is going to actually happen, and that's not because there's something God doesn't know. It's just that that's not logically possible to know because a free creature hasn't made the decision yet.
Right. So dynamic
the
omniscience,
future doesn't exist. Yeah. This also requires an A theory of time or presentism.
Right. Dynamic omniscience is the idea that It's diet Molinism is what I call it.
No, I don't, and I'm going to tell you why. It's the furthest thing from Molinism.
Well, it's Molinism as far as he knows all of the possibilities as possibilities
that is such a bugaboo to me.
Without knowing which one for certain will obtain.
But this let me polish.
But as far as the middle contents would all be the same.
But here's the thing that's annoying
except for
to
the
me.
certainty of
but here's the thing that's annoying to me. I'll say I'm a Molinist.
Okay.
Oh, so that's like basically open theism. And I'm like, what? Do you understand? On a simple foreknowledge Arminian view, God knows everything that will happen in time and space.
Right.
And from any perspective, he knows what has happened and will happen and is happening. Right. On the Calvinist view, he knows that same information by virtue of the fact that he is going to decree it. Right. So, but they know the same limited number of things that happen in time and space. Well, I guess it's ultimately future unlimited, but still, the potentially infinite number of things that happen in time and space, right? So no. Molinism extrapolates that out to every possible and feasible world and says that's what he knows. Any version of open theism is saying that God knows less than what the simple foreknowledge Arminian view or the Calvinist view says God knows. It's saying God knows less than that. Or maybe he does know more because he knows because he doesn't even know what would happen. He just knows what could happen.
But
the point I want to make is if there's something God doesn't know over here, even if you think it can't be known, here's something there's a whole bunch of things that God doesn't know over here.
Yeah.
And you got two views in the middle, the simple foreknowledge view and the Calvinist view that says God knows everything that will happen in this one universe or this one possible world. And then you've got Molinism that says he knows all of it. How is that at all open theism or anywhere close to open theism, except for the fact that when you start talking about possible worlds here and you start talking about possible worlds there, and most people doing this theology stuff don't understand modal language anyway, and those two things sound similar to them, so they say, oh, it's the same.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, but technically speaking, all possible world knowledge in Molinism and all possible world knowledge in most forms of dynamic omniscience I'm aware of, the content's identical. But on dynamic omniscience, God knows one thing less, which one obtains.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only difference. That really is the only difference.
Between dynamic omniscience and Molinism?
And Molinism is which one obtains. Whereas, but the contents of all possible world possibilities as possibilities,
that's like saying,
and all possible world as possibilities, and then the one that's actual.
Stop. This is like saying the difference between the North and the South in the Civil War in America boils down to one difference. There's just one difference. One of them won, one of them lost. That's okay. Technically, you can divide it that way.
What I'm saying
but there's a world of difference between God doesn't know
the one that obtains,
and God knows all of it in every possible world.
Yeah, but I'm stressing the point of agreement. I'm stressing that the contents that most versions that I'm aware of dynamic omniscience of God's knowledge of possible worlds in both Molinism and the dynamic omniscience view is identical. He say God knows all of the could-bes just as much as on Molinism with dynamic. The only difference is on Molinism, God knows the will-bes. And that comes to the second part of his question.
Yes, but
I believe that God knows the will-be, which is why I reject dynamic omniscience. But I'm willing to acknowledge, at least for the versions I'm familiar with it, that the contents of God's knowledge of possibilities is in a bag of knowledge. This bag of dynamic omniscience, the only thing lacking from this bag is which one is actual. Let me give you a picture that has
they
all have the same things.
Let me give you a picture that's come to my mind that I think illustrates what you're saying, and reveals it for the nakedness that it has. Okay, you know those games like on Price is Right? Maybe they have a game like this. You see them every now and then, where there's a big wall with pegs all over the wall, and you drop a disc at the top, and it bounces off the pegs, and it lands in one of the possible slots at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, that grid represents all the possible outcomes, right? So that represents the information that is shared on the view of God between Molinists and open theists. The difference is the Molinist says that God not only knows that, but he knows which course the thing will take,
the entire
and where it will
peg
land.
is going to bounce off of,
right, and where it will land,
and all the dynamic omniscience knows that as a possibility that bounces off this one, and
but
this
there
one,
is a seemingly infinite number of other possibilities,
right?
Which means he doesn't know anything.
No, wrong.
There's
where you're wrong. He knows it could be any one of them. He just doesn't know which one it will be.
Exactly.
But he does know all the logically possible routes that it could take.
Of course,
off
I'm granting that.
Right.
I built that into
That's the same content.
No, it's not. It's the same grid. But as long as there are, I don't know, let's say...
Right, but in the actual world, it's only going to hit one...
Shut up, Pritchett.
No.
Listen, let me finish this point.
You're wrong.
If he knows that it could go all these number of ways, right?
Yes. And same in Molinism. The only thing in Molinism that's different is he knows which way it'll go.
Yes, I know. I've already explained that.
That's one thing.
No, it's not. If you'll let me explain the point.
No, you're trying to say this peg is one thing, then this peg is one thing instead of that peg, and this peg is one thing, and then you can, in the actual world, count up all those pegs, and that's infinite more knowledge than on dynamic. It doesn't work that way. Because
it absolutely works that way.
God knows one thing more. The actual world goes this way.
No. Let me finish a thought here, and I'll show you where you err. Because when the disc is falling, they're loving this. It says when the disc is falling. Okay, I think you understand my criticism, but
you understand.
I think you're ignorant of the power of it.
And what you're trying to say
let me get it out.
I got it out better for you than you're getting it out.
I'm going to get it out. But you have to shut your pie hole. Okay. Here's the thing. It goes the one path. All right, but that means what God doesn't know at time t is, will it go on this path or any of these others? And then at time t1, which is after it's fallen down one floor, basically, from one peg set to the next in the series, he doesn't know. Now, maybe he can predict, but since he could be wrong with a prediction, it's not certain knowledge. He doesn't know now at time t1 which course it's going to take of the seemingly infinite, but yet somewhat smaller number. And it's that way at every juncture all the way down. Whereas the Molinism's position is he knows all those possibilities, just like on dynamic omniscience, but he also knows the actual seemingly impossible to predict series. Well, it is impossible to predict if we're talking about all of creation. So where do I err there other than you just insisting, no, that's the only difference? And if that's the complaint, how is that different than truncating everything down to a binary?
Right, because on Molinism, especially Molinism qua Molinism, that's based on an eternal decree, right? Which I think is wrong. But on that version, I'm a mere Molinist, apparently. But there's only one actual world, right? So on Molinism, God knows that he knows it could hit any of these pegs, but will hit.
Yeah.
Now, on dynamic omniscience, that's just mere possibility. But he knows that as a possibility.
Sure.
But knowing the actual world is just knowing one possibility is certain.
That's where we disagree.
And you're trying to say that every peg is one more thing that is known.
Here, think of it this way.
And I'm just saying, though, the actual world is one more thing.
Think of it this way. How many different choices that could have taken your life on a different course have you made throughout your life? Trillions.
Yeah.
Okay, and maybe trillions. And yet, well, let's say big decisions, 100. Okay, let's say really big issues, 100, maybe less.
And what do you call those big decisions?
Self-forming actions, maybe, if Bob Kane, creator of Batman, is right. Not really, Robert Kane. But anyway, at the end of your life, I say, Jonathan, isn't it amazing? You only made one choice in your life. You chose this life. You could have chosen any number of lives, but you just chose this one. You'd say, no, Braxton, that's absurd. What do you mean I made trillions of choices in my life?
Right, but all the choices I didn't make.
And the same thing with the disc falling. These are each different junctures where God has to know what happens next. You can't just say he either knows that path or doesn't know that path. I mean, that's true, but that's not to look at it closely enough.
But the dynamic omniscience is going to say that God knows all the possibilities had it hit this peg instead of this peg. And that's all that God on Molinism knows, except for the fact that he knew for certain it would hit this peg. That's the actual world peg.
Agree to disagree.
Possible world pegs The dynamic omniscience knows.
You just want to seem cool to the open theists.
No, I'm just trying to be fair to the open theists.
It's trendy right now.
I'm just trying to be fair to the open theists. I reject open theism. I don't care. It's not.
Well, I don't like. Let's move on.
You don't like open theism? Is that what you're saying?
I don't like open theism.
I don't like open. If you ask me, do you like open theism? No, I think they need to become self-loathing Molinists like me. But I don't care that they're open theists. Derek Beeler had a exercise question.
I don't know where that is.
I'll read it.
Here's a question.
Well, if I can find it, I don't know. Lawrence of Arabia, hands down.
We've already done all that. I've read that.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. Question. When I go to the gym after work today, I was going to do deadlifts, shoulder press, and upright rows. Does Prime see anything wrong with those being my 3 compounds today? Absolutely see something wrong. Okay. So what? Okay, so on a deadlift, right, you're going to work hamstrings, primarily glutes, lower back, and rear delts. On a shoulder press, you're going to work your anterior and medial delts. And then on an upright row, you're going to work them again. Why would you do that? Why would you follow?
Don't look at me. I don't know.
Yeah, why would you do a shoulder press and then do an upright row when you're... Why? I mean, if you want to get a little bit of traps in there, do shrugs.
Question. If you knew they would say yes,
right?
what 3 people would each of you like to ask to be interviewed on your show? I know my answers, at least 2 of them. Joe Rogan, because I think he is like often the #1 podcast in the world or something. And I think I could have a good conversation with him, and I think I could give him something to think about. And I know that people have requested that I be on his show before, but I think he only takes celebrities, and who am I? I'm some bald bearded guy from Indiana. But still, Joe Rogan, because he has a huge impact, and I think I could be persuasive with Joe Rogan. Another possible person, if I had time that day, is President Joe Biden. He's a pretty influential guy, and who wouldn't like the opportunity to try and evangelize on the air a sitting president?
There you go.
Not to say that I know that he's not saved, but well, I could talk to him about abortion, for one thing.
Yeah.
You know, but I think there could be a lot of good that come out of that situation. And then third, I don't know. It would have to be someone. I mean, obviously, I'd like to have Saint Bono on the show.
Yeah.
I'd like to have, but I'd like to have someone who I think, like, he's already a Christian. Like, I'd like someone I could make a huge impact, maybe, and in some way that would, I don't know. What about you?
Bono would be a great interview, though.
Well, we'll see about having him on the show.
Yeah.
Maybe they can.
Derek, do face pulls.
So, what about you? 3 people.
Or barbell rows. Don't do upright rows. 3 people. Who would I like to talk to? I think I don't. Joe Biden's important, but I don't know that he'd be aware of where he was. If he was talking to us, what is this?
Jonathan, now.
3 people. Yeah, I don't know. Pass.
Jim Amberg loves Eric Hernandez.
Yes. I'd have to think about that question and come back to it later. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, well, if I'm missing your questions now, I'm a little bit off. Here's a thing. Slavic Striz says, you guys ever looked into genetic entropy? It's showing that the human race is heading to extinction because of mutations building up in DNA. Well, isn't that the whole idea? Is like that maybe we'll get genetic variation and end up with something positive. Like maybe it won't happen for several million years, but maybe we'll get wings or something. Is that the thing? But no, I think that makes sense to me. I'm not a scientist, but it makes sense to me that the more mutations and things that gets messed up in the genetic code, that's not good. But who am I? Don't ask me questions like that. I mean, I'm glad you asked me, Slavic, and thank you for the donation. But for anyone else out there, I'm not a scientist. Hey, Pritchard, are you a scientist?
No.
You didn't get a science degree since we just had the last show?
No.
I'm not making fun of you, Slavic. I'm making fun of us.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that super chat.
Chris, that's what I was laughing at right there.
What?
That comment right there is why I was laughing.
This one?
No.
This one?
Yes.
Chris states Hell House would be boring. You walk into a room and there's a tombstone.
Right. Ashes and it's.
Yeah. See, these comments are so far behind.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what Kenneth adding more clarity. To clarify, a flat earther rejects gravity. They are believing in something with less evidence and at the same time rejecting something with more evidence. I understand that point. So if we went back to your other question, it was something like people being Christians and yet believing in evolution. And it sounds like what I'm taking. Other people try to tell me too. I think what it sounds like you're saying is,
there's better. I think the claim
if someone was a flat earther but rejected the evidence for gravity, that would be irrational because you are rejecting the proposition that has more evidence. Okay, but here's an example from William Rowe's paper on some varieties of evidential argument from evil and some varieties of atheism. At the end of the article, he says, let's say I can think of a situation where someone would be believing a false thing, but be rational in believing it. And by the way, he was an atheist making the point that they should consider theists rational if they believe for the reasons of theistic arguments and things. And he says, so like, what if my good buddy Jonathan over here? By the way, did you guys notice we have the cameras right so that now we're looking at each other when we look? But what if my good buddy Jonathan?
This whole business where we're looking.
What if he heard that I talked to him on the phone and I was about to get on a flight from London to New York, and he hears that that plane crashed on the news. It's all over the news. And they haven't been able to find any survivors. But let's say that I actually am clinging to a life raft. Nobody's found me yet, but they've been looking for, let's say now 7 or 8 hours. And Jonathan is rational to believe that his friend Braxton is dead. But I'm certainly also rational to believe that I'm very much alive sitting over here on the life raft out in the ocean. So I'm rational in believing that I'm alive, and Jonathan's rational in believing I'm dead. But that doesn't affect the truth of it. And you're making a point, I guess, about evidence, but I just wanted to make a point that people can have wrong beliefs and be rational in their wrong beliefs. Do you disagree, Jonathan?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, why is there a hell? Because I said the guy starts sleeping with his girlfriend and doing drugs. He's like, why is there a hell house where a dude is sleeping with his girlfriend? Well, it'll be a depiction of something very benign, I'm sure.
Yeah. It'll be implied.
Raiders of the Lost Ark has face melting off.
Yes. So that's always our go-to thing. Imagine, so when we talk about
your face melting off for billions of years, and then you're just getting started.
That's
eternal conscious torment.
Right. That's our go-to.
Open theists say Molinism is deterministic. Calvinists say Molinism is open theism. Great point, Derek.
Yeah, that's great. And I love it when they do, because it shows you just how terrible they are at thinking. Philosophically.
Yeah.
And logically.
Let's see.
Yeah, we need to go to the after show now. This is like...
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to do an after show today. We've gone for an hour and a half. I thought maybe this week we'd just skip it. And we've kind of come to the end of the questions. But y'all have been a dandy audience out there today.
Well, Zwamo says we've missed his... we missed your question. Sorry. I did eyeball Mr. Green's question, but he had one about kenosis, I think. Is that a good explanation? Depends on how you define it. Mr. Green, depends on who's defining it and how. Chat just died.
Poor chat. Danny says, do you think God can fail? No.
God can't fail at anything he intends to do.
But here's where this becomes interesting. I don't know if this is what you're thinking of, Danny, but often Calvinists will challenge us, who are not Calvinists within Christianity, with, hold on a second, you youth believe that God is trying desperately to save people and failing. No, I believe what God tried to do was offer a means of salvation and a system for the publication of that good news. That's what he tried to do, and he succeeded in that.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't accept that, that's not on God.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Why aren't you Calvinists?
Well, we have several debates from both of us on this debates playlist that tells you.
In short,
we don't think Calvinism's
is exegetically bunk, it's theologically problematic, and it's philosophically stupid. Now, having said that, I will also say that I find Calvinism a very fascinating and very interesting set of theological ideas in the stream of Western Christianity. It's fascinating, it's interesting, it's engaging. I love to read from Calvin forward, love to read Reform, all of that. But at the end of the day, it's exegetically it's theologically problematic, and it's philosophically stupid. So I reject it. So on the one hand, I can't even take it seriously anymore. I'm at that point in my life where I've examined it so much that whatever. I still find it interesting and fascinating as a set of ideas in the history of the Western stream of theological reflection. As far as this is Christian biblical truth, no, that's laughable. It's so flippantly dismissible for me at this point. I have a hard time talking to Calvinists, but I say the same thing with my Arminians and even the traditional provision, whatever they're calling themselves. Those people, I mean, look, we've talked about certain things what do we categorically when we're talking about grace, or what does it mean to be born again, or all this. For me, I have a whole different set of, because I read real scholarship, what the right way is to frame all of these things, that it's almost hard for me to talk to people who don't have good exegetical skills and good background knowledge of the ancient world, for me to even talk to about these issues, because they don't know what I'm talking about, and I know what they're talking about, and I just sit there and think how wrong they are in the way that they characterize these things. So it's for me, I can't even take Calvinism seriously as truth, but I can take it very seriously as an interesting set of ideas. But that's how far away from Calvinism I am. Why aren't you a Calvinist, Braxton?
Why am I not a Calvinist?
Right.
I don't think Calvinism's true.
Yeah. I don't think it's true either. So.
Okay. Here's Zamo's question. The dominant view in Old Testament scholarship is that Deuteronomy was not written by Moses, but was composed during the reign of Josiah and was attributed to Moses. What are your thoughts on that? Follow up on my question. How can one hold to inspiration if they subscribe to said view? Well, in my opinion, that's an incorrect view. I do affirm Mosaic authorship, and I think that the book of Deuteronomy, or at least a portion of the book of Deuteronomy, was discovered by King. And I think that we need to rediscover the Bible in the modern church. So everyone should buy a copy of the Bible. And if you want something to boost your interest in learning the Bible, buy a copy of the book Letters from Ignorantia. The author is concise,
brilliant,
beautiful,
eloquent.
But Derek, thank you so much for putting things out there. And Melissa Doherty said you recommended the book and she read it and loved it. And I'm going to go on her show in December, I think, if it works out.
Cool.
So,
and if you want to know how long I can hold a plank and other questions about my ab and core training, I have a whole channel for that. Whoever asked that question, Theology Geek Fitness on YouTube, and you can see all kinds of stuff about my workouts and what kind of stuff I use and all that. So,
and with that, we'll see you next time. And no after show today. Sorry, folks. But with that,
sorry, patrons, we don't love you this week.
Well, I love them, and I still need to get them a new video series from you and the last of my current video.
If you want to know why I'm not a Calvinist, become a patron, because I'm going to do a whole series of rants on that. So,
all right, sounds good.
Respectful.
We'll see you next time on Trinity Radio.
Well, maybe not entirely.
announcing everyone, friend of Trinity Radio, Unsilenced Derp.